crying little girl pleaded, "Please save us," in an instant. Her millionaire father stormed home and shouted loudly. "Please, don't hurt me," she whispered, pressing her back harder against the cold wall. Her fingers clawed at the chipped paint, trying to make herself disappear. A heavy boot thudded on the floor outside the door. Click. Click. The sound echoed, deliberate, like a predator marking territory. "You think hiding will save you?" The stepmother's voice cut sharp and low. "Get up, now." The girl flinched, pressing her eyes shut. "I just want it to stop," she thought, teeth clenched against the trembling in her jaw. "Stop crying. Do you think anyone cares about your tears?" The words hissed under the door, each syllable tightening the air. A soft rustle from across the street caught her attention. A neighbor peered through the curtain. She froze, eyes wide. The neighbor's hand lifted slightly, unsure, hesitant. No words, just silent acknowledgement. Her breath hitched. "I can't stay here. I can't." She tried the door handle again, tiny fingers slipping on the cold metal. Locked. "Open this door!" The stepmother's shout cracked like a whip. The girl recoiled. "Please. I'm sorry. I won't do anything. Just leave me alone." The hallway remained ominously quiet for a moment. Then the soft thump of another boot approaching. Closer, closer. Panic surged, her heart pounding in her ears. She pressed herself deeper into the corner, listening to the faint scrape of the stepmother's nails along the doorframe. The neighbor's shadow moved slightly, hesitation frozen in motion. A faint glimmer of hope flickered. Somewhere, someone might be watching. Her whisper, almost inaudible, cut through the tension. "Someone, please, see me." Another pause. Then the hallway fell silent. The heavy air lingered, tense, waiting. For what, she didn't know. The bread sat untouched on the chipped wooden table. She poked at it with a trembling finger, then withdrew, pulling her tattered sleeves over fresh bruises. "Eat it, now!" The stepmother barked from the other room. The voice carried sharp edges like knives scraping across her nerves. The child shook her head slightly, voice barely audible. I'm not hungry." A sigh rattled the room. "Not hungry? Don't lie to me. I can see everything." Her stomach twisted painfully, a hollow ache she had learned to ignore. She hugged her knees, trying to make herself smaller. Maybe if I disappear, she'll stop noticing me. The broken clock above the stove ticked loudly. Each second was a reminder, a slow drum marking the hours of neglect. She stared at it, counting silently, hoping the time would pass, wishing it could erase yesterday, last week, every forgotten birthday, every ignored plea. "Why do you stare at the clock?" The stepmother stepped into the kitchen, shadow falling over her small frame. "Are you thinking about your little parties that nobody cared to attend?" I just remembered," she whispered, looking down at the floor. Her voice cracked like dry wood. "I didn't mean to." "Don't mean to what?" The stepmother leaned closer, eyes narrowing. "Don't mean to be useless?" A neighbor peered through the cracked window, their lips pressed together, eyes wide with silent horror. No one intervened, only a faint tremble in the hand pressed against the glass. The child shivered, not from the cold. Her teeth chattered, from the weight of being unseen, unheard, unvalued. She wrapped her arms tighter around herself. "I have to survive. Someone. Someday." The stepmother's footsteps retreated, leaving the room colder than before. The child pressed her forehead to her knees and whispered again, "I have to hold on. I have to." The vase slipped from the counter, crashing to the floor. Terracotta shards scattered, tiny echoes rattling through the empty kitchen. The child froze, her hands hovering mid-air, eyes wide. "Please, don't notice." A harsh, drawn breath cut the silence. The stepmother's face appeared in the doorway, tight and furious. "What was that?" she snapped, voice sharp as broken glass. I didn't..." The girl stammered, voice trembling, trailing off as fear seized her. "Don't lie to me. Everything in this house belongs to me. You touch it again and you'll regret it," the stepmother warned, stepping closer. The child flinched, shrinking against the counter, knees scraping the cold floor. From across the street, a neighbor pressed a hand to her lips, eyes wide, heart pounding. The weight of the scene pressed in. They dared not intervene, only silently observed, a witness trapped between fear and moral doubt. "I didn't mean to. The girl whispered, almost inaudible, tears glinting in the corner of her eyes. Her voice broke against the tension filling the room. The stepmother's scowl remained, lingering for a heartbeat. Then she turned sharply, retreating down the hallway. "Don't ever forget who is in charge here," she muttered under her breath, fading into silence. The child exhaled shakily, letting her arms wrap around her knees. The shards of the vase glittered like tiny reminders of how fragile she felt. Every shadow seemed heavier, every corner darker. She pressed her forehead to her arms, whispering to herself, "I have to stay quiet. Just stay quiet. Maybe someone will see. Someday." The neighbor's shadow lingered briefly in the window, hesitant before retreating. The house remained alive with oppression, every creak, thump, and silence marking the child's fragile world. Her eyes widened as she pressed her small hands against the grimy glass. A shadow lingered on the other side, tall and still. Her heartbeat hammered in her chest, each thump echoing louder than the last. Could someone really be there? She thought, swallowing hard. The stepmother's voice cut through the silence, sharp and accusing from the hallway. "Who are you staring at? Don't think anyone cares." I'm not looking," the child whispered, voice barely audible, trembling as she pressed her back to the wall. A faint movement outside caught her eye. The figure shifted, sunlight glinting off a jacket, a belt, a hand, something that radiated authority. For a split second, her chest lifted with cautious hope. "Stop daydreaming," the stepmother snapped, footsteps approaching. "Focus. You're worthless if you waste time staring outside." The girl flinched, lips pressed together, but her eyes never left the shadow. Maybe someone is coming. Someone who sees me." A neighbor peeked from behind a curtain across the street, eyes wide with hesitation, hand frozen halfway to the glass. No sound came from them, only a silent acknowledgement of her suffering. "Get back here," the stepmother barked, slamming a hand against the wall near the door. "I said stop now." The child's hand shook, clinging to the window frame. Her thoughts tumbled. Every punishment, every harsh word, every threat flashed through her mind. And yet there, outside, was the faintest glimmer of hope, a figure standing tall, patient, waiting. She whispered under her breath, almost a prayer, "Please, someone, see me." The figure remained, unwavering, casting a long shadow in the sunlight. For the first time in days, the child's chest rose a little higher. Rescue might actually be possible. 5. Her knees buckled beneath her, small fists pressing into the cold, uneven floor. Breath hitched. Tears pooled silently, spilling over her pale cheeks, unnoticed. "You'll never amount to anything," the stepmother's voice slashed through. The room sharp and unrelenting. Each word landed like a hammer against her fragile courage. I'll try," the child whispered, barely audible, voice cracking. She pressed her face into her arms, wishing she could disappear entirely. The stepmother scoffed. "Try? You? You're worthless, do you hear me? Worthless." Her footsteps clicked closer, echoing like judgment. I can't do this anymore." The thought trembled in her mind, unspoken. Exhaustion weighed on every limb, every heartbeat. The walls themselves seemed to close in, the corners pressing like shadows, oppressive and relentless. A soft sound came from outside, a neighbor's subtle gasp. Eyes wide, hand pressed to lips, acknowledging silently what the child could not voice. No intervention, just recognition of despair, an unspoken understanding of powerlessness. Stay down, the stepmother snapped. Maybe if you're quiet, I won't notice your pathetic attempts. The girl flinched, pressing herself tighter to the floor. I'm invisible. No one sees me. A shiver ran through her, body trembling under exhaustion and fear. She tried to lift her head, to draw in air, but the weight of constant neglect pressed her down. You're nothing, the stepmother muttered, stepping back, leaving a silence heavy with judgment and cruelty. The child's lips quivered as she whispered to herself, I have to hold on just a little longer. Someone has to come. Someone will. Outside, the neighbor's eyes lingered, fleeting acknowledgement of suffering, before retreating. The room stayed still, suffocating, waiting for change that might never come, or might arrive at any moment. Her tiny fingers grazed the cold, worn doorknob, trembling but resolute. She pressed harder, knuckles white, nails scraping against the metal. Come on. Just a little, she whispered under her breath. The stepmother's voice snapped from the other room, sharp and impatient. What are you doing? Stop fiddling with that door. Her voice faltered, fear tightening her throat. She crouched lower, trying to hide her efforts, but determination burned quietly in her chest. The doorknob didn't budge. Another failed attempt, another shiver of fear running through her. I won't. She swallowed hard, then whispered again, louder this time. I won't give up. Someone has to see me. Why are you wasting your time? The stepmother's footsteps grew louder, approaching. You'll never get out, and you know it. The girl flinched, eyes darting down the hallway. Shadows stretched, thick and oppressive, yet she reached again, fingers gripping, heart pounding. The hallway seemed endless, the air dense, but still she tried. A neighbor's curtain rustled faintly across the street. Eyes wide, they pressed a hand against their lips, hesitating, witnessing without interference. No words, only the silent acknowledgement of courage amid oppression. The stepmother appeared briefly, scowling. Stop it. You think anyone cares? Her voice trembled slightly, not from fear, but from frustration at the child's defiance. The girl's hand trembled, over the knob, then clenched into a fist. I have to try, someone has to see me. Footsteps faded for a moment. She pressed closer, leaning into the locked door, whispering fiercely, I will not give up. I will survive. Someone will come. A brief pause, breath held, tension coiling like a spring. Every shadow seemed darker, every sound sharper. The flicker of hope burned quietly, stubborn against the darkness. The stepmother's footsteps echoed down the hallway, deliberate and slow, each tap a drumbeat of menace. Where are you hiding now? She hissed. You can't escape me. The child froze against the wall, knuckles white on the chipped paint. Breath caught. If she sees me? Her heart pounded, tiny chest rising and falling in rapid bursts. A shutter rattled across the street, a neighbor's hand pressed against the glass. Eyes wide, the silent observer held their gaze, trembling but unwilling to look away. The child's pulse quickened. Maybe someone is watching. The dog in the next yard whined, scratching at the fence, ears perked. Every sound amplified the tension, making the hallway feel longer, shadows deeper. The child whispered under her breath, I have to stay quiet. The stepmother stopped, nostrils flaring, voice low and dangerous. I know you're there. Don't think I can't find you. I'm nothing. The child muttered, trembling, fingers clutching the wall as if it could protect her. A faint glimmer of light caught the corner of the hallway, though the figure remained unseen. Someone is coming. Someone has to see me. The thought shivered through her, fragile but insistent. Move, or... The threat trailed off, uncertainty creeping into the stepmother's tone. She stomped again, the hallway vibrating with her frustration. The child's ears strained. Every creak, every whisper of air, every distant sound sharpening suspense. Micro-moments, the neighbor's gaze, the dog's whine, the shutters rattle, each thread weaving a web of anticipation. She pressed her forehead against the wall, whispering fiercely, "Please. Someone. Come." And somewhere beyond, the shadows, tension coiled tightly, a promise of imminent change, heroic arrival, authority, rescue, felt but not yet seen. The cold floor pressed against her thin legs, every tile searing with emptiness. She poked at the bread on the floor, fingers trembling. I can't eat. Eat it, a sharp voice echoed from the hallway. The stepmother's tone was brittle, impatient, almost cruel in its certainty. I'm not hungry, the child whispered, voice cracking, barely audible. She hugged her knees, sleeves pulled down over the fresh bruises that stung like fire under her skin. The room was silent except for the faint creak of the floorboards beneath her small movements. Dust swirled in the morning light, catching in the thin streaks of tears on her cheeks. Why does it always feel so heavy? Why does nobody see me? From across the street, a neighbor pressed a hand to the grimy glass. Eyes wide, lips parted slightly, hesitant. They didn't move, didn't speak, just watched. The child's pulse quickened. Maybe someone could help. Maybe someone could see her. Stop staring at me, the stepmother barked suddenly, voice slicing through the fragile morning calm. The girl flinched, pulling tighter into herself. I'm sorry, she whispered, bowing her head. Her stomach twisted painfully, not just from hunger, but from the weight of constant neglect. Every swallowed sob felt like a tiny betrayal of hope. The bread remained untouched. She leaned her forehead against the cold floor, eyes closed. I just want it to stop. Someone. Please. Someone. A faint breeze moved through the cracked window, carrying with it the silent acknowledgement of a neighbor watching. It was small, almost invisible, but enough to keep the ember of hope flickering inside her chest. Her hands tightened into fists. I'll survive. I have to. Someone has to see me. The hallway stretched before her like a trap, shadows bending, over peeling wallpaper and broken toys. Every creak of the floorboards made her chest tighten, tiny hands clutching the curtain as if it could shield her from the world. The stepmother's footsteps echoed, deliberate and heavy. Where are you hiding now? Her voice hissed, carrying a cold menace that made the air shiver. The girl's eyes widened, ears straining. She pressed her small body closer to the fabric, trembling but trying to remain unseen. Don't let her see me. Don't let her find me. A loose toy rolled across the floor with a faint clatter. The stepmother paused mid-step, nostrils flaring. I know you're there. Stop hiding. I'm not doing anything, the child whispered, voice barely audible, almost swallowed by the tension in the air. Her fingers dug into the curtain, knuckles white, heart hammering with every passing second. The shadows of broken furniture stretched long across the hallway, looming shapes that seemed to lean closer with each heartbeat. The house itself seemed alive with menace, walls tightening, windows staring like accusing eyes. Footsteps shuffled, again, closer. The child's breath hitched. Please, someone. Notice me. Someone. She pressed her cheek against the curtain, hoping the shadows would hide her trembling. From across the street, a neighbor's eyes peeked through the window, silent, hesitant. Their gaze lingered, unspoken acknowledgement of cruelty and the child's fear. A faint rustle of the curtains drew no reaction from them. Too fearful, too cautious to intervene. Come out, the stepmother shouted, voice sharp, vibrating with frustration. The girl's body curled tighter, trembling. I can't. I won't. Someone has to see me. Time stretched, every second taut with dread, each shadow a silent threat, each heartbeat a coil of suspense waiting for the next move. The clock above the stove ticked loudly, each second hammering into her chest. She traced the cracked surface of a broken toy with small, trembling fingers, trying to steady herself. I remember laughter, warm sunlight, birthdays that never came. The memories stung like salt on an open wound. I have to keep going, she whispered, barely audible. Someone has to see me. Her voice wavered, swallowed by the cold, empty room. A floorboard creaked in the next room. The stepmother's voice cut through, sharp and bitter. Still sitting there? Stop wasting time. Nobody cares about you. I'm trying, the child breathed, hugging her knees. Her fingers tightened around the toy, knuckles white. Every tick of the clock made her heart pound faster, the weight of isolation pressing down on her chest. Outside, a neighbor's eyes peeked through the curtain, hesitant, silent. The girl caught the movement in the corner of her vision. Please, just notice me. She lowered her head, blinking back tears, wishing someone would reach through the walls and end the suffocating emptiness. The room felt smaller with every breath. Shadows stretched across the floor, dancing like specters. The air grew heavier. The child's resolve wavered under the oppressive silence. I won't give up, she murmured again, this time louder, voice cracking. I need someone to see me. A faint creak on the stairway made her flinch. She pressed herself closer to the wall, knuckles digging into the worn wood floor. Each second was a test, each heartbeat a coil of tension. Somewhere beyond these walls the world watched or didn't. Her gaze lingered on the broken toy. A whisper of hope stirred inside her chest. I will survive. I must be seen before it's too late. Across the street, hands pressed against grimy glass, eyes wide and uncertain. The neighbors watched, faces pale, as muffled sobs reached them from the little girl inside. No one spoke, yet their silence carried the weight of judgment and fear. She's still in there. Poor thing, one whispered under their breath, barely audible. What can we do? We shouldn't get involved. Another replied, voice trembling. The hesitation hung between them like a shadow, heavy and oppressive. Inside, the child crouched in a corner, knees tucked tightly under her chin. Each muffled whisper from the neighbors reached her ears, a faint echo of the world beyond her prison. Someone sees me. But are they brave enough? The stepmother's footsteps thudded closer, sharp and deliberate. Still staring at the walls, are we? Her voice cut through the quiet, a whip of menace. You think anyone cares? Nothing, the child whispered, barely moving. Her small hands trembled as she pressed herself further into the corner, clutching her thin dress around bruised arms. Shadows of broken furniture stretched across her body, looming and cruel. Outside, the neighbors exchanged glances, unease, written on every face. One raised a finger, hesitated, then lowered it. Another swallowed hard, eyes darting to the street beyond, unwilling to risk more than observation. The girl's gaze flicked toward the window, catching the faint shimmer of watchful eyes. A tiny flicker of hope stirred inside her chest. Someone is seeing me. Someone might act. The stepmother stomped away, slamming a door somewhere down the hall. The child exhaled, a small, silent relief mingling with fear. Beyond the glass, witnesses waited, powerless or hesitant, while the tension in the room stretched taut, waiting, lingering, unresolved. Her fingers fumbled with the cold metal lock, raw from repeated attempts. The door refused to yield. Heart hammering, she pressed her forehead against the smooth wood, whispering to herself, "Come on, just open. Please." A harsh voice sliced through the silence. "Stop crying. Nobody cares about you." The stepmother's scolding was sharp, brittle, a whip against the fragile calm. I'm not crying," the girl whispered, voice quivering. She tugged at the lock again, trembling hands leaving faint scratches on the surface. Shadows of the furniture stretched long across the floor, looming like silent sentinels. From across the street, a neighbor pressed a hand to the glass, eyes wide and fearful. Another shifted nervously, caught between moral duty and self-preservation. The child noticed, a flicker of hope stirring deep inside. Someone is seeing me. The lock clicked faintly under her pressure, a tantalizing whisper of success. She paused, chest heaving, as footsteps approached rapidly. "What are you doing?" The stepmother's voice cracked with anger, anticipation, and threat. I just... The child's voice faltered, eyes darting to the window, to the faint glimmer of watchers outside. Courage battled with terror, each second stretching longer than the last. The shadows around her seemed to grow, curling and twisting as if alive, testing her resolve. She clenched her small fists, pressing, her body against the door. "I have to try. I have to." A distant hum of an engine reached her ears. She froze, eyes wide, hope and fear entwined. The world outside stirred, yet she remained locked inside, hands raw, heart racing, courage flickering like the faintest glimmer of light in a darkened room. "Please let it end," she whispered, voice trembling, almost lost beneath the hum of the cold room. Her fingers dug into the worn fabric of her dress, nails leaving faint marks on the thin cloth. A memory flashed. Yesterday, her tiny arms had reached for a warm hug that never came. Broken promises and whispered threats haunted her. "If you cry again, you'll regret it." I can't do this again," she murmured to herself, trembling. Tears pooled silently, streaking her cheeks as she hugged her knees tighter. The room felt smaller, the shadows heavier, wrapping around her like unseen chains. Footsteps echoed faintly in the hallway, distant yet threatening. The stepmother's voice, sharp and impatient, broke the silence. "Stop whining, nobody cares what you want." I wish someone would notice," the child whispered, voice faltering. Memories of ignored birthdays, abandoned toys and hushed sobs surged, a storm of pain and longing. Outside, a neighbor's eyes pressed against the window. Their gaze lingered, hesitant yet attentive. The child caught the flicker of recognition, the silent acknowledgement that someone was watching her struggle. Hope, fragile and trembling, stirred in her chest. Maybe someone will see me. A toy rolled across the floor, forgotten but catching a sliver of sunlight. She reached for it, hands shaking, and whispered again, "I won't give up. Someone, somewhere, will help." The shadows seemed to shift slightly as if listening. Her breath steadied, just a fraction, and the ember of hope glimmered amid despair. Every whispered word, every trembling glance toward the window, held her courage intact, fragile but unbroken. The hallway thudded with heavy footsteps, each one a drumbeat of impending danger. The door slammed somewhere behind her, reverberating through the walls like a warning. Sharp breaths followed, a cadence that made the child's small frame shake, uncontrollably. "Where are you hiding now?" the stepmother hissed, voice tight with menace. "Don't think you can escape me." I'm right here," the child whispered, voice barely audible, curling into the corner, hands pressed over her ears. Her fingers trembled as if the walls themselves had teeth. The floorboards groaned under each step, echoing like a countdown. Shadows stretched across the walls, twisting and bending with every movement, painting the room with looming shapes. The child's eyes flicked toward the window. A shadow shifted outside. Small, distant, yet filled with promise. Someone is coming. Someone will see. "Me!" A car engine hummed faintly down the street, each vibration through the floor tightening the coil of suspense around her chest. She pressed herself closer into the corner, knees drawn up, clutching the fabric of her sleeves, each heartbeat loud in her ears. "You can't hide forever," the stepmother barked, voice splitting the air. I won't." I won't let you hurt me, she whispered, teeth chattering, courage mingling with terror. From across the street, neighbors peeked, hands trembling against the glass. No one moved, but the child sensed their eyes, an unseen witness to her suffering. Every creak, every shadow, every sharp intake of breath tightened the room's tension. Yet amid it all, that flicker at the window, that distant engine, whispered a fragile promise. Change was coming, even if unseen, even if just for a moment. Her fingers slid against the cold metal of the locked door, raw and red from repeated attempts. Each scrape and tug felt like defiance, a small rebellion against the suffocating weight of the house. I have to try, she whispered, teeth clenched, voice trembling but determined. I won't let it keep me down. The door refused to budge. A faint groan echoed through the walls, as if the house itself were watching, waiting, complicit in her torment. She pressed harder, knuckles white, fingernails scraping against the worn surface. Stop that noise. The stepmother's voice cut sharply from the hallway. Don't think you can escape, nobody cares. I don't care, I'll get out. The child gasped, voice breaking, hope and fear colliding. Her body pressed against the door, fingers trembling, pulse hammering like a drumbeat in her chest. From across the street, a neighbor's hand tightened against the curtain. Eyes wide, they held their breath, caught between fear and the moral weight of inaction. Another pair of eyes lingered, hesitant but watching. The child noticed them, a spark of courage flickering inside her chest. Someone is seeing me. Someone might act. The door remained locked, yet the attempt itself was a quiet act of defiance. Her breathing came in shallow, ragged gasps. The shadows around her stretched and shifted, seemingly aware of her silent resolve. I won't give up. Someone has to see me, she whispered again, eyes flicking to the window, daring herself to believe. The small rebellion, almost imperceptible, coiled tight in her chest, ready to erupt into hope, waiting for the moment the world would finally intervene. A faint creak echoed through the hallway. The stepmother froze mid-step, ears straining. Her scowl, sharp and controlling just moments ago, faltered. A twitch of hesitation softened the rigid lines of her face. What was that? She muttered, voice low but tense. The usual authority wavered, revealing the first hints of doubt. The child's fingers tightened against the worn doorframe, knuckles white. Heart pounding, she dared a small glance toward the hallway. She's faltering. Maybe I can. The stepmother stepped forward cautiously, boots soft against the floorboards. I don't know what that was. Just nothing. Ignore it. Her words trembled slightly, betraying uncertainty she hadn't meant to show. The child's eyes widened. Hope flickered, fragile but insistent, like a candle in a dark room. Someone will notice me. Someone might come. Outside, a neighbor shifted behind the curtain, holding their breath. A shadow at the window moved, subtly, a hint that help could arrive soon. The tension in the room coiled tighter, each pause, each hesitant step stretching seconds into eternities. Stop. Stop hiding. The stepmother barked, voice cracking. She tried to regain control, but her confidence wavered with every heartbeat. I'm not hiding, the child whispered, voice small yet defiant, almost daring the woman to notice. Fingers pressed to her chest, she held herself upright, courage growing in tandem with the stepmother's faltering authority. The walls seemed to shrink around them, shadows stretching like silent witnesses. The stepmother's control was no longer absolute. The child's fear mingled with hope as suspense tightened, a breathless anticipation of change, of rescue. Hovering just beyond the door, her knees gave way beneath her small frame and she collapsed against the cold floor. Breath came in short, shaky bursts. Whispers escaped her lips, faint and broken. I can't. Please. The walls of the house seemed to close in, dark corners bending closer with each heartbeat. Shadows from the peeling wallpaper stretched across the room, twisting like silent predators. The stepmother's voice cut through the haze, sharp and bitter. Still whining? You'll never escape. I need someone. Please. The child gasped, curling tighter, small fists pressing against her chest. Exhaustion draped over her like a heavy shroud, yet beneath it, a flicker of determination remained. Outside, a distant shadow shifted near the window. The faint hum of an engine vibrated through the walls. Eyes pressed against the glass, neighbors held their breath, waiting, watching. The child's ears caught the whisper of movement beyond the door, a presence she had sensed but not yet seen. Stop it, stop crying, the stepmother muttered, voice shaking, authority faltering. The girl's gaze lifted toward the window, catching a glimpse of a strong silhouette. A heartbeat of hope pulsed through her chest, mingling with fear. Someone. Finally. Every creak, every faint shadow, every hesitant sound drew the tension, taut, stretching seconds into eternity. The child's small frame trembled, yet in that collapse a silent courage emerged. Her eyes, wide with fear and anticipation, locked on the distant figure's shadow, a promise of change, rescue, and the approaching climax that would shatter the oppressive hold over her. She whispered once more, voice barely audible. Please, don't let it end like this. The door burst open with a violent slam, sunlight slicing into the darkened room. Dust motes danced in golden streaks, catching her tear-streaked cheeks. The child froze, eyes wide, heart hammering in her chest. A shadow recoiled across the walls. Every object in the room seemed to shrink back, as if acknowledging a new authority. There, framed in the doorway, stood a tall figure, posture rigid, eyes sharp, radiating control. Stop! The figure's voice rang out, cutting through the tension like steel. Not another tear from you, the child gasped, trembling, mouth half open. You came, she whispered, barely believing her own eyes. The stepmother's scowl faltered instantly. Her sharp words, her intimidation, everything lost weight in the presence of this commanding figure. I can explain, she stammered, voice cracking as authority slipped from her grasp. The child's small hands trembled, then slowly reached toward the light spilling across the floor. Relief mingled with disbelief. It's really happening. Someone came. The figure stepped forward, each movement deliberate. Dust swirled around, their boots catching the golden sun. Neighbors peered from windows, lips parted, whispers barely audible. Finally, someone. The stepmother took a step back, eyes darting, trying to regain control, but hesitation clung to her like a shadow. How? Enough, the hero said, voice firm, carrying authority that no threat could pierce. The child let out a shaky breath, tears still glistening, but trembling less. Hope settled in the room, mingling with tension. Every corner seemed to exhale as the first real shift occurred. The walls that had closed in on the child felt distant now. Shadows shrank. Silence, broken by a single voice of power, promised that the nightmare might finally end. Her chest rose and fell in rapid, shallow gasps. You came, she whispered, voice cracking with disbelief. Trembling fingers reached toward the sudden warmth spilling across the room, a light she hadn't dared imagine. The stepmother froze, eyes narrowing, mouth slightly open. Her years of dominance wavered in a single heartbeat, unseen, unchallenged. Until now, the flicker of uncertainty haunted her gaze. What is this? She stammered, voice brittle. Every word lacked its usual bite. The walls that had once amplified her authority now seemed to shrink around her. The child took a small, cautious step forward, eyes wide but growing bolder. I'm not afraid anymore, she whispered, voice trembling but determined. The warmth of protection reached her fingertips, and a tiny hope unfurled inside her chest. The commanding figure remained still for a heartbeat, letting the silence stretch, authority radiating without motion. Each pause tightened the suspense, pressing the stepmother's faltering confidence into sharp relief. From across the street, neighbors shifted, breath held in unison, watching this fragile balance of fear and hope unfold. A whispered thought. Finally, someone stands for her. You can't. I won't. The stepmother tried, but her words faltered, faltering against the presence of authority that did not waver. The child's eyes glistened with tears, not of despair but disbelief-tinged relief. Hands still shaking, she whispered again, "Please, don't let it end." Every corner of the room seemed to pulse with tension, heartbeats synchronized, shadows recoiling, and the air thick with suspense. The stepmother's control, once absolute, now teetered on the edge, while hope, fragile and trembling, began to anchor itself in the child's small, brave frame. Each footfall echoed through the room, deliberate, measured, carrying weight the walls hadn't known before. The child's wide eyes followed the hero's approach, small hands gripping her knees, hope fluttering like a fragile bird. The stepmother's scowl hardened, but there was a tremor beneath it. What are you doing here?" she spat, trying to reclaim authority, voice sharp yet quivering. "Enough," the hero said, voice low but absolute. Every syllable carried command. The room seemed to bend toward that authority. Shadows on the walls recoiled, flickering like guilty witnesses. The child's breath caught. A tremor of relief slid down her spine, fingers loosening slightly from the cold floor. I knew you'd come," she whispered, voice breaking. The stepmother took a step forward, pointing a finger, voice rising in panic. "This is my house, you—" "Not another word," the hero interrupted, eyes locking onto hers, unwavering. The room vibrated with tension. Every neighbor pressed closer to the windows, silent, watching the moral balance shift. Some gasped quietly. Others held hands over mouths, unable to look away. The child's gaze shifted between the figures, heart hammering, courage building, in small increments. Shadows shrank further, the oppressive atmosphere loosening around her. You can't," the stepmother faltered again, faltering in a voice now stripped of menace. "Your control ends here," the hero said firmly. Pause. Silence stretched, hanging heavy until even the walls seemed to exhale. The child took a small step forward, trembling, hope igniting. Authority, unwavering and deliberate, filled the space. The anticipated confrontation loomed, yet the child felt the first taste of safety and moral justice, fragile but undeniable. I can explain," the stepmother stammered, voice cracking like brittle glass. Her words hung awkwardly in the room, empty shields against the weight of exposure. The hero's eyes never wavered, watching her falter, absorbing every tremor, every faltering breath. "Explain what?" the hero asked, calm but piercing, letting the silence press heavier than any shout. The child clutched her knees, eyes wide. "Is it really happening? Is she really powerless?" Relief mingled with disbelief, fingers tightening and relaxing in the tense moment. The stepmother's hands curled into fists, knuckles whitening. Her lips quivered. A sharp inhale betrayed panic. I didn't mean... It wasn't supposed to." "Stop," the hero interrupted, voice firm, unwavering. "Your control ends now. No more fear, no more cruelty." Each word was a hammer striking the invisible chains that had bound the child. A silence settled. The walls seemed to close in for the last time, oppressive shadows shrinking away. The child's small chest rose with tentative hope. Every flicker of the stepmother's former menace faded under the weight of authority and moral reckoning. The antagonist tried again, faltering. Words fell apart, mid-utterance, a stammer that betrayed total loss of command. Her posture sagged. Every tremor made the power imbalance more pronounced, more visible. The child's eyes flicked to the hero, awe mixing with relief. I'm safe. Someone is here. It's over. Outside, a neighbor shifted slightly, lips pressed together, acknowledging the shift in the unseen hierarchy. Inside, the room vibrated with the collapse of cruelty, and the first real sense of hope and safety settled in the child's trembling frame. Stop! Not another tear from you! The hero's voice cut through the suffocating tension like a sharpened blade. The room seemed to shiver, shadows retreating into corners, silence fracturing under the weight of authority. The child's wide eyes glistened with awe and disbelief. You really came, she whispered, voice trembling but growing stronger. Relief quivered in her small frame, a breath she hadn't dared take before. The stepmother froze, a bead of sweat trickling down her temple. Her lips parted, no words formed, just the faltering remnants of authority crumbling under scrutiny. I can explain, she stammered, voice thin and brittle. The hero's gaze never wavered. Your control is over. Not here. Not now. Not anymore. Each syllable pressed down like iron, a moral reckoning unfolding in real time. The child's hands trembled, then slowly lifted, reaching toward the figure of protection. She inhaled sharply, the first real sense of safety settling into her chest. I'm not afraid, she murmured, barely audible. From across the street, neighbors pressed closer to their windows, soft gasps escaping. Some covered mouths, others gripped railings, all witnessing the collapse of cruelty and the rise of justice. The air hummed with anticipation and release. The stepmother took an involuntary step back, fingers twitching at her sides. Authority, once absolute, had dissolved into hesitation, then into visible panic. Every corner of the room seemed to lean toward the hero, shadows bending, silence finally shattered. A small smile broke across the child's tear-streaked face, tentative but radiant. She exhaled, relief mingling with disbelief. The first real shift had come. The long nightmare fractured and the heartbeat of hope pulsed stronger than ever. A tiny, hesitant smile spread across the child's tear-streaked face. Her trembling hands relaxed slightly, chest lifting as if she could finally breathe. Hope, fragile and bright, began to bloom in the shadowed room. The hero knelt slowly, voice soft yet firm. It's okay. You're safe now, they said, hand extending toward her. The warmth of that gesture seemed to anchor the child, grounding her after years of fear. Really? Safe? The child whispered, voice barely audible, eyes wide with disbelief. Yes, the hero replied. No more tears from fear. You won't be alone anymore. The stepmother recoiled, words failing her, authority evaporating. Her fingers twitched at her sides, and every futile attempt to regain control was swallowed by the hero's calm, commanding presence. The child's gaze lingered on the figure, uncertainty giving way to tentative trust. Fingers brushed against the offered hand, then withdrew, then returned again. I think I can smile, she murmured, voice shaking but brightening with each word. Outside neighbors shifted, some whispering in awe, others pressing closer to witness the fragile, transformative moment. Silence fell, broken only by soft breathing and the subtle shift of fear into relief. Sunlight streamed through the window, dust motes dancing in golden streaks highlighting the stillness now punctuated by hope. The room, once oppressive, felt lighter, safer, almost alive with possibility. The hero's hand remained extended, a quiet promise of protection. You've been strong, they said, and you're allowed to be happy now. The child's small smile widened just slightly, the first in years, and with it a sense of peace began to settle. Shadows receded. Fear loosened its grip. Hope, like sunlight, finally broke through. The stepmother sank into herself, shoulders curling inward, as if the walls themselves pressed her down. Her posture crumpled, head bowed, lips parting in a shallow, uncertain exhale. Silence filled the room, heavier than the oppressive gloom that had once dominated it. The child sat upright, small hands trembling yet steadier than before. "It's over, isn't it?" she whispered, voice fragile but confident enough to pierce the quiet. The stepmother's gaze dropped to the floor. Her words faltered, crumbling under the moral weight pressing down on her. The authority she had wielded for years evaporated, leaving only uncertainty and shame. The hero's voice remained calm, deliberate. "Your control ends here. No more fear. No more suffering. Not one more tear will come from her because of you." The stepmother flinched, shoulders sagging further, breath coming in short, jagged bursts. Every attempt to reclaim dominance faltered under the quiet, undeniable authority of moral courage. The child watched, awe mingling with relief. Eyes wide, she breathed in the stillness, the first absence of threat in so long. The room felt different, lighter, as if hope had finally reshaped its corners. Neighbors peeked from windows, holding hands over mouths, watching the collapse silently. Whispered acknowledgments of justice and empathy passed between them. "It's done. Finally." The stepmother's lips quivered. I didn't mean to." "Your choices had consequences," the hero replied firmly. "Now you witness the results." The child's chest rose, calmer now. Shadows shrank. The oppressive tension once woven through every corner of the room dissolved. The collapse of cruelty was complete, leaving room only for courage, relief, and the quiet promise of protection. Neighbors pressed closer to their windows, bodies leaning forward, breaths held in quiet anticipation. Whispers threaded through hallways, soft but charged. "Finally, she is safe." The child's small fingers clutched the hero's hand, trembling at first, then firmer with each step. Her chest rose and fell, a cautious rhythm of relief, replacing months of fear. I can walk now," she murmured, voice barely audible but heavy with awe. The stepmother shrank back, cornered by her own failings and the undeniable authority radiating from the hero. I didn't," she stammered, voice fragile, words faltering under the weight of moral reckoning. The hero's grip remained steady, reassuring. "You are safe. That is all that matters now." The calm, unwavering tone carried a quiet justice, one the neighbors sensed without a word. Outside, the street seemed to exhale collectively. Shadows retreated from doorways, lights spilling across pavements as if reflecting the moral shift inside the house. A faint breeze rustled leaves, soft applause from the world beyond the walls. The child glanced up, eyes meeting each neighbor's subtle acknowledgement. "Thank you," she whispered, though her voice barely carried. It was enough. The community had witnessed courage, justice, and the end of cruelty. A neighbor murmured to another, hand over mouth, "It's done. She's free." The words traveled like ripples, carrying relief, awe, and moral reflection through the neighborhood. The hero crouched briefly, eyes locking with the child's. "This is your moment. Let it fill you with hope." The child's tentative smile widened slightly, steps lighter, fear dissipating. For the first time in years, she felt the tangible warmth of safety, moral justice, and collective relief, witnessed by the world around her and finally within her. The hero paused in the center of the room, eyes scanning every corner, absorbing the quiet aftermath. Dust motes drifted lazily in golden streaks of sunlight, falling like tiny witnesses to the storm that had passed. The child's gaze met theirs, wide, unblinking, gratitude shimmering without a single word. Fingers brushed lightly against the hero's hand, a silent affirmation. "Thank you. I'm safe now." The stepmother stood frozen, shoulders slumped, words lost, her authority dissolved into thin air. The child's chest rose with calm breaths, trembling replaced by tentative steadiness. "You're safe," the hero said softly, kneeling just enough to meet her eye level. "No one will hurt you again." I feel lighter, the child whispered, voice small but filled with awe. She flexed her fingers, releasing the lingering tension that had gripped her for so long. Outside, faint whispers of neighbors drifted through partially open windows. "She's free," one murmured. Another simply nodded, eyes glistening, sensing the moral balance finally restored. The room itself seemed to breathe. Shadows realigned, walls no longer oppressive, corners softened under the warmth of golden light. Micro-beats of reflection. A broken toy, a tilted picture frame, small traces of the past now witnessed but no longer threatening. "Everything will be all right," the hero added, hand still steady on hers. The child nodded, small smile flickering brighter, trust forming, like the first rays of morning. Silence enveloped them, not heavy or fearful but contemplative, peace threaded with relief. Every heartbeat, every micro-motion, marked the final release of fear, the collapse of cruelty, and the gentle arrival of hope. The room, once a cage of dread, now held only possibility, protection, and the quiet hum of justice fulfilled. The hero extended a steady hand, warm and reassuring. "Come on," they said softly, voice carrying quiet authority and care. "It's time to step into the light." The child hesitated, small fingers brushing against the hero's, heart hammering with uncertainty. Can I really?" she whispered, voice trembling yet laced with hope. "Yes?" the hero replied, kneeling slightly to meet her gaze. "Every step you take is yours. No one can take this from you." Tiny feet touched the cold floor, hesitant at first, then more firmly. Each step echoed a freedom long denied, a rhythm of courage and tentative trust. The child's chest rose and fell more evenly, breath steadying as the oppressive weight of fear lifted with every move. The stepmother stood silent, powerless, posture sagging. No words could undo the lesson, no gesture reclaim control. Her absence of authority only highlighted the shift. Justice had arrived, unspoken, yet undeniable. Outside, neighbors leaned closer, murmuring quietly. "She's safe, finally," one whispered. Another nodded, lips pressed together, hands clasped in relief. The street, once passive and silent, now resonated with acknowledgement and moral awareness. The hero guided the child past the threshold. "You've endured more than anyone should," they said gently. "But you're not alone anymore." The child glanced back briefly, eyes shining, a tentative smile spreading. I feel free," she murmured. Sunlight streamed into the doorway, golden and forgiving, illuminating dust motes dancing in warm air. The child's steps grew more confident, each one a reclamation of safety, dignity, and hope. For the first time, the house no longer felt like a prison. Every shadow, every creak, every whispered fear was replaced with the tangible promise of healing, courage, and a future that belonged entirely to her. The child huddled in a soft blanket, fingers wrapped around a warm cup of cocoa. Steam spiraled upward, brushing her tear-streaked cheeks, the sunlight from the open window illuminating tiny motes of dust that danced like sparks of hope. The hero sat nearby, hand resting lightly on the blanket. "Take your time," they said gently. "No rush, you're safe now." I never thought I'd feel warm again," the child murmured, eyes downcast but glimmering with relief. She took another slow sip, the sweetness grounding her after weeks of fear and neglect. Outside, distant murmurs floated through the quiet street. "She's okay. Finally," one neighbor whispered. Another nodded, lips pressed together, eyes reflecting moral relief. The world beyond the walls seemed to breathe along with her, a soft chorus of acknowledgement and quiet justice. The hero's voice remained steady. "You've endured so much. Now it's time to rest, to heal." I think I can," she whispered, fingers tightening briefly around the cup. "I feel lighter." Moments stretched, filled only with the warmth of sunlight, the aroma of cocoa and the soft cadence of safe breathing. Shadows that once haunted corners seemed to recede entirely, leaving gentle light in their place. The child looked up at the hero, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Thank you," she said, voice trembling but honest. "You earned this," the hero replied softly. "Every ounce of peace, every small comfort, it's yours." For the first time, she felt the lingering tremors of fear loosen. Safety, once fragile, now felt tangible. Each sip, each breath, each quiet glance outside reinforced that the storm had passed, leaving warmth, healing, and the first true sense of home. The house felt lighter. The oppressive weight of dread lifted as if the walls themselves had exhaled. Sunlight streamed through open windows, casting warmth across surfaces once shadowed and threatening. The child wandered slowly through the rooms, fingers grazing the peeling wallpaper, eyes tracing familiar corners that no longer held fear. "It's quiet," she whispered, voice fragile but tinged with wonder. The hero followed, watching her every small movement. "It's always been safe. Now it finally feels that way," they said softly. Their presence anchored the child, offering both protection and affirmation. Silence enveloped the house, yet it spoke volumes. Every abandoned toy, every crack in the wall, every faint echo of past punishment now resonated as a testament to endurance, courage, and justice. The child's gaze lingered on the empty hallway. "She's gone?" The question was tentative, a mixture of disbelief and relief. "Yes," the hero replied. "No one can hurt you here again." Outside, neighbors leaned from windows and doorways observing the shift. A whispered acknowledgement floated across the street. "She's free, at last." The subtle hum of collective relief spread quietly through the neighborhood, as if the air itself recognized the balance restored. The child exhaled, shoulders loosening, eyes brightening. She took a tentative step forward. I can breathe now," she murmured. The hero smiled faintly. "That's right. The shadows have lifted, and now you can begin again. Safe, unafraid, and in control of your own story." As the child moved through the home, light brushing her face, the hush of relief deepened. Each room, once a prison of fear, now held only possibility, safety, and the quiet resonance of justice fulfilled. The child's small hand slipped into the hero's, fingers curling tentatively around theirs. "Look," she whispered, voice barely audible but brimming with wonder. "The birds, they're singing." The hero smiled, kneeling slightly to meet her gaze. "Yes, and you get to hear them every day now," they said softly, warmth in every word. Sunlight spilled across the garden, touching petals, glinting off dew, and illuminating tiny creatures that had always gone unnoticed in her shadowed world. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves, carrying a sense of freedom she had almost forgotten. A giggle escaped her lips, small and hesitant, like the fragile first note of a long-silenced melody. She looked up at the hero, eyes wide. I think I can laugh again," she murmured. "Then laugh," the hero encouraged gently. "Let yourself feel it. Every little joy is yours." She took a tentative step forward, twirling around, as sunlight caught the edges of her hair. Tiny giggles bubbled up, unpracticed and precious, each one a reclamation of a lost childhood. The hero watched, hand resting lightly on her shoulder, guiding without restraining, teaching trust through presence rather than words. "See, the world isn't as dark as you thought," they said quietly. She paused, glancing around at the blooms, the fluttering butterflies, the soft rustle of leaves. "It's beautiful," she whispered, eyes glistening. For the first time in months, she moved without fear, every micro step in the garden reinforcing safety, connection, and the fragile but growing sense of joy. Laughter and wonder mingled with the breeze, transforming trauma into hope, and sorrow into small, triumphant moments of reclaimed childhood. The child and the hero paused by a weathered wooden bench, the afternoon sun casting warm golden hues across the garden. Leaves rustled softly in the breeze, a gentle rhythm underscoring the fragile calm. The hero's voice broke the silence, soft yet firm. "No one should ever suffer in silence," they said, eyes meeting hers with quiet intensity. The child's fingers twisted slightly in her lap, then unclenched as she looked up. "I'm not afraid anymore," she whispered, voice trembling but steady. The words lingered, fragile bridges spanning months of fear, neglect, and despair. A bird chirped nearby, and the sound seemed amplified in the serene garden, a small punctuation to the weight of their exchange. She glanced at the petals glistening in sunlight, each detail a reminder of beauty once hidden behind shadows. Fear may fade, but courage stays, the hero continued gently, voice carrying reassurance rather than instruction. Every step you take now matters. Every small moment of trust, every laugh, every choice, it belongs to you. The child nodded slowly, the muscles in her shoulders relaxing for the first time in years. I think I can feel safe," she murmured. From nearby windows, neighbors observed quietly, nodding subtly. Eyes softened, breaths eased. Even, without words, they sensed the moral tide shifting, the balance restored, justice quietly acknowledged, and the child's right to hope reaffirmed. The hero smiled faintly, kneeling slightly to meet her gaze at eye level. "This is your life now. It's full of possibilities, of safety, joy, and trust. Hold on to that." The child let out a small, genuine smile, the first fully unguarded one in memory. Silence settled again, but it was not heavy, not. It was gentle, reflective, and filled with unspoken promises of healing, love, and a future reclaimed from fear. Across the street, neighbors leaned from windows and doorways, exchanging glances that spoke more than words ever could. Eyes met, nods passed silently, and small gestures conveyed collective relief. Finally, "She is safe," one whispered, voice trembling slightly with emotion. A woman at the corner lifted a hand, tentative yet intentional, fingers brushing the air. In acknowledgement, "It's over," she murmured, a quiet sigh escaping her lips, as if the weight of unspoken worry had finally lifted. The child, hand still in the hero's, glanced toward the windows. Tiny eyes widened in wonder, realizing for the first time that her safety was not just private. It was now witnessed, validated, and shared by the surrounding community. The hero's voice broke softly through the quiet. "See? Courage matters. Every act of endurance, every silent plea. It's seen, even when you don't realize it." The child nodded slowly, fingers tightening briefly around the hero's hand. "People care," she said, voice barely more than a breath. A neighbor's soft chuckle of relief rippled through the street, joined by another's gentle murmur. "She's going to be all right now." Micro-reactions, smiles, subtle, bows of the head, hands pressed over hearts, formed a tapestry of acknowledgement and hope. The air, once thick with tension and fear, seemed to exhale collectively. Each home, each face, each quiet witness became part of her healing. Courage and justice were no longer abstract concepts. They were tangible, shared, and alive. The child's steps became lighter, laughter flickering like a small flame mirrored by the subtle glow of understanding and support across the street. The neighborhood, long silent and hesitant, now hummed with the quiet resonance of relief, moral clarity, and communal joy. For the first time, hope was not hers alone. It belonged to everyone who had watched, waited, and silently wished for her freedom. The child settled beneath the sprawling branches of an old tree, sunlight filtering through leaves to dapple her face in shifting patterns. Fingers traced the rough bark as she inhaled slowly, each breath deeper than the last. A soft murmur escaped, her lips almost to herself. I made it through. The words trembled, fragile, yet carried weight that had once seemed impossible. She glanced at the open sky, clouds drifting lazily, and let memories surface. Punishments, harsh words, long nights of trembling. But each recalled moment seemed smaller now, distant, like shadows receding in the light. The hero's presence was nearby, quietly observing, a comforting anchor without intrusion. "It's okay to remember," they said softly. "But remember this too. You are safe now, and your story continues from here." She nodded, shoulders relaxing, eyes closing briefly. "I think I can trust again," she whispered. The phrase felt foreign, almost daring yet hopeful, like a fragile seed taking root. Nearby, the wind stirred leaves, a gentle chorus of movement, and she noticed small joys previously unnoticed. A bird landing on a branch, sunlight glinting off petals, the faint scent of earth warmed by the day. Each detail, small yet significant, reminded her of agency regained, life reclaiming its rhythm. "Tomorrow will be brighter," the hero added, voice soft, barely above the wind. "Every step forward is yours to take." She opened her eyes fully, sunlight catching her lashes, and allowed herself a small, genuine smile. Shadows lingered at the edges of memory, but they no longer dictated her heart. Relief, gratitude, and the first sparks of trust glimmered in her gaze, fragile yet persistent. Alone under the tree, she felt the profound stillness of survival, the gentle warmth of hope, and the quiet power of choosing her own path. The child's hand rested lightly in the hero's as they walked back toward the house. Each step was deliberate, measured, a small rhythm of regained confidence. The garden, it felt different today, she murmured, voice soft but carrying wonder. "Yes," the hero replied, matching her pace. "It's a start. Every step like that is yours to take, at your own pace." She glanced up, sunlight, catching the glimmer in her eyes. I didn't think I could feel safe again." Her words paused mid-breath, fragile but honest. "You can," the hero said quietly. "And you will. Every laugh, every tiny moment of joy. That's proof." Small giggles bubbled up unexpectedly as a butterfly brushed past her shoulder. "Did you see that?" she whispered, pointing, astonishment brightening her features. "I did," the hero smiled, hand briefly brushing hers in affirmation. "And there will be many more. You'll notice them all, step by step." Neighbors peered from windows along the street, watching, quietly, but knowingly. Subtle nods, gentle smiles, and soft murmurs communicated acknowledgement of her healing and the moral balance restored. She paused at the doorstep, hand on the frame, feeling the solid weight of the house now transformed from a place of fear to one of potential and safety. "I think I'm ready," she whispered. "You are," the hero replied, voice steady. "And remember, you are never alone in taking these steps. Every small move forward is yours, and it matters." They entered together, shadows receding behind them. Laughter and conversation, tentative yet growing, filled the spaces that once held only silence and fear. Step by step, the child's trust rebuilt itself, rooted in safety, bolstered by compassion, and observed by a world ready to believe in her resilience. The hero paused at the doorway, hand resting lightly on the frame, eyes sweeping over the empty rooms. Silence hung, thick but not oppressive, more a quiet acknowledgement of the journey endured. The child stood nearby, shoulders straightening, gaze steady. "It feels different now," she whispered, voice fragile but confident. "Yes," the hero replied softly. "Every shadow you faced, every moment of fear, you endured it. That courage stays with you, etched into memory." She glanced toward the windows, noticing the subtle smiles of neighbors who had watched silently, feeling the moral gravity of what had unfolded. They They're happy for me? She asked, uncertainty laced with hope. They are, the hero affirmed, and they've learned too, about empathy, about intervention, about the power of standing up for what is right. Your story changed more than just your world. The child's fingers brushed a sunlit corner of the floor, tracing lines that seemed ordinary yet held the weight of past pain, now softened by safety. I think I can remember the good now too, she said, letting a small smile escape. The hero nodded, voice gentle, measured. That's right. Remember the courage, the hope, and the moments of care. They are yours to carry forward. From nearby windows, the neighborhood seemed to exhale collectively. Murmurs of recognition, subtle nods, quiet laughter. All acknowledged not only the child's survival but the community's awakening. Justice and compassion lingered in the air, unspoken yet powerful, shaping understanding and conscience. The child took a tentative step forward, hand brushing against the hero's. I think I understand now, she murmured. Even small acts can matter. Yes, the hero agreed softly, and they always will. The light in the room seemed warmer now, shadows retreating, leaving memory etched not in fear but in resilience, hope, and enduring lessons for both child and community alike. The garden, fading sunlight. A child sits on the wooden step, hands trembling against the grass. The protector stands a short distance away, watching without pressing. A long silence. You're breathing easier now. The child nods, voice small. It doesn't feel like the house anymore. Feels different. Because it is. The darkness doesn't own it now. Eyes drift to the doorway, voice trembling. He used to stand there, every night, just watching. I couldn't move. I thought I'd never get out. Words break. Silence. A bird drops onto the grass, pecking. Both stare at it, the moment holding them still. He won't stand there again, not anymore. A whisper, afraid. And if he does? If he comes back? The figure moves closer, steady voice. Then he meets me first, but listen. Beat. You already won. You lived through it, you're still here. Lips tremble, hesitation. Then a small hand reaches out, brushing against the other. A pause. I don't feel so small now. The answer comes quiet, certain. Good. Keep that. It's yours now. The breeze stirs the leaves. The last sunlight spreads across the child's face. Eyes close, a long breath released, slow and complete. For the first time, the body loosens, shoulders dropping. Relief lingers in the air, unspoken, but undeniable. The protector stays beside. Them, hand close, protective yet freeing. The house behind them no longer carries its shadows. Only light. Night settles. The garden is quiet. Stars bloom across the sky. Inside, the child sleeps, body curled gently beneath a thin blanket. A faint smile rests on her lips, peace at last. The protector lingers by the doorway, half in shadow. A long silence. You finally let go, a whisper meant only for the night. The child shifts slightly, breathing steady, unbroken. The room feels different now, safe. The silence itself carries weight, not fear, but rest. The watcher exhales slowly, leaning against the frame. You carried too much for too long. No one should, but you did. And you survived. The words trail into the dark, soft but certain. Another pause. Eyes trace the child's face, catching the small twitch of a dream, the calm settling deeper. Tomorrow will be lighter. I'll make sure of it. The figure steps back, into the shadows, letting distance guard instead of closeness. The quiet stretches. Outside, a night wind stirs the trees, gentle, unthreatening. Justice has already spoken. The house holds no terror now. You'll wake and know. It's over. Not forgotten, no, but over. A glance at the sky, stars watching back, indifferent yet constant. A faint smile breaks, rare but true. A promise kept, though never spoken aloud. Guardianship doesn't need words. You'll have tomorrow. That's enough. The final. Look rests on the sleeping child, the calm face no longer marked by fear. Relief stands in the air, steady and whole. Quiet steps fade into the dark, but the presence lingers, unseen, unyielding. Night folds in, not as threat, but as shelter. Hope breathes, tomorrow waits.